I think the time has come where we can seriously start requesting for the inevitable release of Paul Levesque, formerly known as Triple H. The reality is that this guy has no idea what he's doing. It is almost baffling how little he knows and how shit he is at his job. You would think, you would be wrong, but you would think that someone spending decades at this point, decades under the learning tree that is Vince McMahon, would have some idea of what does and doesn't work. Now I know some of you Triple H, aka Paul Levesque fans, are thinking, hater, what are you talking about? I love the product. It's better than it's ever been. I can't wait till Sami Zayn becomes WWE. Shut up. Nobody cares, number one. Number two, even if you believe that, there are some objective measurements and objective metrics that we can easily use to determine that Triple H is, in fact, not good at his job. When I say Triple H, of course, I mean Paul Levesque, right? We can just use actual objective metrics. You know what I mean? Like, for example, he fired, first of all, he hired Karrion Cross, right? To begin with, this whole circle jerk, let's just talk about Karrion Cross as an example. He hires Karrion Cross, then what happens? Then after that, like, Vince McMahon takes control of Karrion Cross on the main roster, and then is like, oh, this guy sucks, what are we going to do with him? I know, put him in like a gladiator's outfit, and then like hope for the best. And the best was he gets released. You know what I'm saying? After this, Triple H somehow gets him hired back again. So you're thinking, all right, fine. Now that he's got the reins, now that Paul Levesque has the reins of power, he can finally do whatever it was that he planned to do with Karrion Cross. Turns out Vince McMahon was right. Turns out there's nothing anyone can do with Karrion Cross, so released he is again. In other words, this was a complete waste of money. The fact that this company paid salary to Karrion Cross and his wife for like 5-6 years on and off is preposterous. It's like, how long do we need to have this happen before somebody thinks to themselves, wait a second, man, maybe this was a complete disaster from the beginning, from the inception. You know what I mean? Now, Triple H, everyone is allowed a mistake here and there, right? We're not going to sit here and pretend that everybody, is going to get only wins, okay? Like, sometimes people are going to have, wins and losses and wins and losses and wins and losses, right? But it doesn't really matter, because fundamentally, what's going to happen is that we're going to weigh the wins against the losses. So let's look at some wins. Kevin Owens. What's happened with him? Fuck all. He had a meaningless and, quite frankly, too long Universal title reign. Now, in addition to it being meaningless, like I just said, it was too long, and they were trying to make it long because it was like the first real Universal title reign, and then Brock Lesnar wins it and holds it for like a year and a half. Then Roman Reigns beats that record, which basically means that Kevin Owens held it effectively for a day and a half because nobody else cares about his reign. It's one of the worst reigns of all time. Now, in addition to all this, we've got other recent signings. Rusev, nothing's happening with him. It's been like 3 months. Aleister Black, nothing's happening with him. It's been about 3 or 4 months. You see what I'm saying? Don't you see the pattern here? Now, Triple H took over the main roster duties, so I'm unsure if he's also in charge of NXT at this point, right? But, for better or for worse, NXT also sucks. Now, I haven't watched it in a while, but why should I? The whole point of NXT is that once in a while, these cocksuckers are going to move on to the main roster. But as I've said many times before in this channel, over the years, honestly, a lot of times the NXT talent is just that. They're NXT talent, meaning that they have no business being on the main roster at all. I'm talking about your Kiana Jameses of the world, your Ilya Dragunovs of the world, and at this point, your Carmelo Hayeses of the world, right? You get somebody like Carmelo Hayes, they become this quote-unquote massive star on NXT. Everyone except for the haters says, oh, this guy's gonna just be a world champion. This guy's the future. Then all of a sudden, he's tag teaming with The Miz. He sucks. The Miz leaves to do some other bullshit like play a golf tournament. Carmelo Hayes is nowhere to be seen until The Miz comes back, right? Like, basically, this guy is a loser. He has nothing to offer this company. That's one alternative. The other alternative is Triple H has no idea what he's doing. Now, in the stupid ass, in the stupid ass, situation that WWE found itself in, where Triple H is now in charge, we have a lot of problems that have to do with NXT, but we also have a lot of problems with respect to old stars that come back that are actually getting pushes, right? Like, for example, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. Now, technically these guys, I think, came back while Vince was in charge, or at least like they had their contract negotiations while Vince was in charge, right? So like, it's not like Triple H brought back Cody, you know what I mean? Like, Cody just came like when Vince was around. But nevertheless, it doesn't really fucking matter. The point is that these guys are back, and Triple H now has to pretend that he likes CM Punk and that now he's seen something different in CM Punk. Well, that's odd, because I haven't seen anything different in CM Punk. Now, maybe backstage he's a little bit better, but I highly doubt it, because the last time we heard of CM Punk backstage, he was getting his ass beat by Jungle Boy and getting unceremoniously suspended and fired for getting into fights with, people in their 20s. This is a man, he's almost 50. You know what I mean? He's getting into a fight with 20-some-year-olds. It's like, fucking grow up, man. This man-child called CM Punk now is an old man. He's a shell of his former self, which is saying a lot because his former self also sucked. But given that Triple H doesn't know at all how to generate any kind of stars or any kind of star power, he has to rely on the old. He has to rely on CM Punk, who wasn't a star when he was in his prime, and now he's he's a star now. Especially given how the WWE portrays him. They portray him as a guy who finally achieved his dream of main eventing dumbass WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, we all know that doesn't count because it's night one, but nevertheless, that's what WWE is telling us, right? That's the ruse they're playing us, right? So then the question becomes, of course, what wins does Triple H actually have? I cannot think of one thing that has changed since he got the reins that has been positive. I can think of a million negative things, Pretty much TNA is ruined now due to its association with NXT and laterally WWE. You have the Hardys having a competitive match against Fraxium. Have you fucking lost your mind? Fraxium, who in 3 years will be released and no one's gonna give a shit about ever again. You're never gonna hear the word Fraxium. You think in 20 years you're gonna go to your independent wrestling show and it's gonna be like, Fraxium is here to sign autographs? No, but the Hardys still do that shit. They're an actual legendary tag team. The Hardys, here's how a match between the Hardys and Fraxium should go. Fraxium does a bunch of running around the ropes, meaningless offense. They miss everything. Matt Hardy hits a twist of fate, does the side effect on the other one. Jeff Hardy swan-taunts a legal man. 1, 2, 3, the end. That's how the match should be. But Fraxium is presented as a competitive tag team. Moose, who is presented as the number one guy in TNA for a long time, has trouble beating, he can't beat Trick Williams, who is a jobber. Trick Williams is a guy who, quite frankly, isn't good enough for the main roster. That's why he's been festering in NXT for 4 years, wasting away his prime in NXT. If it weren't for Booker T, nobody would give a shit about Trick Williams. You would look at him the exact same way you look at Zion Quinn. He has the personality of Zion Quinn. Remember Zion Quinn? Exactly, motherfuckers. None of you remember Zion Quinn. But because Booker T elevates this jobber, people are like, wow, Trick Williams is going to be a massive star. No, he isn't. None of these people are capable of being massive stars. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, it is what it is. What can you do? What can you do about it? Triple H is pretty much ruining this company as we speak. You've got people in TNA, you've got people in NXT, you've got people in the main roster that all are doing things that are meaningless. Now, logic would dictate that at least some of these people have some talent, right? Because otherwise, why the fuck did you sign Obafemi? And since he's been NXT champion in a completely meaningless run that nobody watches, NXT gets 400,000 views. Golden Girls gets more views. And that's a show from the fucking 80s or whatever. Think about what I'm saying here. Nobody, they can't draw a dime. But irrespective of any of that, we find ourselves in a situation where nothing is moving in NXT, right? So it's if they bring in a new NXT guy, it's what's the point? They don't even have space for them anymore. They're like, oh, here's Dark State. What have they done? They've been there for a couple of months. What's their goal? What's their mission? I mean, maybe they said it because I haven't watched, but that's another problem. But quite frankly, I don't think they have. I think Dark State is just a bunch of retards who come out and attack people for no reason. What's their stated mission? What do they do? You know what I mean? What is the purpose of all these characters that have no meaningful interactions with each other? And there's no distinction between them, So the issue that I have, and I think this all falls on Triple H, is that it's all his fault, motherfuckers. It's all his fault. Triple H has fundamentally ruined wrestling, and quite frankly, every week that he's allowed to be in charge is another week of shit. Simple as that. Every week, things get worse. Every Raw ends the exact same way. Seth Rollins and his buddies beat somebody up. Usually the same people. You know? And we get it, motherfuckers. Seth has 2 guys, and them 3 are more powerful than the other 3 guys. Right? This is no different than when Seth Rollins was hanging out with, if anyone remembers, with Buddy Murphy and fucking, AOP, which has to go down as one of the worst factions of all time, right there with Retribution. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's the same thing. It's the same exact thing as 6 years ago that Seth Rollins is doing. Except now, he's the visionary. Back then, he was the Messiah. Wow! What a fucking earth-shattering difference, cucks. That being said, I got nothing more to say about this bull. So take care of yourselves and go fuck your own mothers.